Hello everyone. We're living in a strange time where we're increasingly witnessing the destruction of life. For example, in southwest France, where I am, you may have heard about it, pine trees are being devoured by a microscopic worm, the pinewood nematode. Apparently it's the first time this has happened here. What do you think the authorities' reaction was? Well, we need to quickly kill all the infected pines to stop the spread. But do you know why this worm is causing so much damage? In fact, this is the consequence of intensive pine monoculture. For what? To produce paper or low-quality wood, the region has gradually been covered with a single tree species for profit, to make cheap paper or low-value furniture. As a result, all the trees fall during storms. They all burn in wildfires like in 2022, and they all get sick when a worm or something else comes along, yet with the help of other industries, namely the pharmaceutical industry. Some will surely want to vaccinate the trees one day. They'll invent a vaccine for pines affected by this worm. Instead of questioning this intensive monoculture and letting diverse species thrive together, no, they keep going. And the only solution is to kill living beings. Because trees are living beings that allow us to live. In these pine forests, you only find pines. They're not even forests, they're just pine fields. Animals flee these spaces, and so do people. All you find there are machines to cut them down and haul logs to paper mills. Animals end up in the few remaining hunting reserves, where hunters wait to kill them. So, if we look at all this, death is everywhere. We try to profit as much as possible from living things, but otherwise we kill everything. The factories, I can talk about this because there's one 15 kilometers from my home, pollute the air, land and sea. So much so that oysters are regularly unfit for consumption. For example, this factory has a 35-kilometer long pipe that dumps all its untreated waste into the ocean because it has a prefectural exemption to do so, while all households are required to treat their waste. And so it goes into the ocean, and regularly in the Arcachon Basin we get announcements that oysters are unfit for consumption and people who eat them get sick. Do you think scientists have made a link between these effluents and the oysters being unfit? No, not at all. They say it's due to a virus, a bacterium, or whatever. They don't question the system, because if they did, the factory couldn't survive and jobs would be lost. So maybe we'll end up wanting to vaccinate oysters with mRNA to supposedly prevent these diseases. It's the same logic applied to our livestock. For example, an August 2025 article from Le Monde reported the first detection of a disease. Of course, they don't question how the animals are raised, the food they're given, or the vaccines they're injected with, because you've noticed even if a herd of cows is vaccinated, they still get sick, and the response is always to slaughter all the sick animals. They don't even wait to see if they'll recover. They're killed immediately. As a result, our farmers are suffering, suicides are rising, chronic debt is rampant, and our food is turning into poison because the meat is of very poor quality, full of adjuvants, nanoparticles, and all that ends up on our plates and in our bodies. So the mRNA vaccines, which are all the rage now, are everywhere, and we end up with them in our bodies. Even if the crazy anti-vaxxers oppose human injections, they are still exposed to it. I can assure you, vaccinated or not, we all have the same things in our bodies now. This whole system is based on dogmas, like a religion. We thought we were done with religions at the end of the 19th century, but no, not at all. The true universal religion is scientism. In the 20th century, and even better in the 21st century, it's the Church of Vaccinology, where all drugs have been replaced by vaccines. Science this, science that. The priests of this religion are white-coated scientists trained in schools funded by industries, usually oil-based ones like Rockefeller, which poured tons of chemical drugs into the 20th century. In the 21st century, it's vaccines. This Church of Vaccinology rests on two main dogmas. The first is that disease is transmitted from one living being to another, from one person to another. You'll say, that's commonly accepted, obviously. Listen carefully. No double-blind scientific study has ever proven this. You heard me right. It's a dogma, something we can't verify but say is true. I encourage you to read the book, The Myth of Contagion, which shows that during the 1918 Spanish flu, they tried to see if the flu was transmitted from one person to another. They couldn't make it happen. They put sick and healthy people together, had them sleep in the same dorm, talk side by side. Nothing worked. They even took mucus from sick people and injected it into the noses and throats of healthy volunteers. Result, zero transmission. It's well documented in the book. You can test it yourself. If a colleague at work is sick, shake their hand, hug them, kiss them, spend the whole day with them. In most cases, you won't get sick unless you ate the same spoiled food at lunch or there's an environmental toxin like polluted air you both breathe. Then you'll both get sick from that toxin. This dogma didn't even hold up during COVID-19 in 2020. Despite everything we were told, there's no proof that COVID-19 spread from person to person. Why do you think Pfizer didn't test its vaccine for transmission? No vaccine has been tested for stopping transmission because it doesn't work. It's impossible to prove. In France, the so-called patient zero, who died of COVID-19, was a technology teacher like me, who died of a pulmonary embolism with a positive COVID test. He didn't die of COVID. He died of a pulmonary embolism. And he had no contact with anyone from China. The French repatriated from China, quarantined in Carry-le-Rouet, didn't have a single positive COVID test, but a dogma isn't questioned. It's imposed. If I'm sick, I can transmit it to you. But it doesn't hold up. That's the first dogma of this church of vaccinology. The second dogma, repeated like a mantra, is vaccines have saved millions of lives. You hear it every time you mention a side effect. If you say, my friend got ALS Guillain-Barré or died after their second COVID vaccine dose, they'll cut you off. Stop right there. Vaccines have saved millions of lives, so sure, it's unfortunate a few die, but it's for the greater good. Where does this mantra come from? Let's look at diphtheria cases in France from 1900 to 2000. From 1950, when the vaccine was introduced, the curve drops steadily, so they say the vaccine saved millions from diphtheria. But if you look from 1900, there were 40,000 cases, and by 1946, it was down to 8,000 before the vaccine. Without World War II, the decline would likely have been steady. This curve doesn't prove the vaccine saved millions. The decline since 1900 could be due to hygiene, sewers, clean water, bathrooms, better food, multiple factors, but we don't know exactly. For fun, I overlaid two curves, car registrations in France and overall mortality since 1900. Car registrations rise, mortality drops, and they're strongly correlated. You could say, cars have saved millions of lives and mandate car use, even for a 500-meter trip to the bakery. If someone says, my friend died in a car accident, you'd reply, cars have saved millions, so a few deaths are fine. That's how dogmas are created with partial misleading data. This scientism religion, the Church of Vaccinology, is perpetuated by propaganda organs. When everyone around you repeats these dogmas, they become true because you don't want conflict. The media repeat the same things until you believe them. In 2009, during the H1N1 crisis, the media weren't fully under the control of governments and pharmaceutical companies who wanted to profit by vaccinating everyone. What did Macron do in 2018? He put his friend in charge of AFP, the source of all press information. That's why all newspapers, Le Monde, Le Parisien, Le Figaro, sound the same, always pro-vaccine, pro-government, critical thinking is gone. They don't need to show proof anymore. They just show a study or a curve, and you accept it. That's why Pfizer tested its own vaccines and said, they're great, I tested them myself. That's not science. They push flu vaccines on the elderly, but the flu vaccine has never worked. They say, get vaccinated to protect grandma and grandpa. That's never been proven. Many get the flu after vaccination, but if you say that, you're called anti-science. This is a religion that, like all religions, seeks to dominate and control people. We're treated like cattle. Our food quality plummets. We get sick. They inject us with poisons. And in the end, they slaughter us like cows. Laws are changed to allow this. Soon, they'll help us die. The fight for survival is daily. We must recognize the perversions, the bans, for our own good. They've changed the terms. Religion became an organization, a society. Companies are called philanthropic foundations, doing it for our good. But no, their goal is to profit off us, dominate us, and lead us where they want. We resist. See you soon for more info.
Lève-toi, lève-toi pour l'humanité. Lève-toi, lève-toi pour l'humanité. La guerre est là, mais on reste debout. L'humanité se lève, on va tout changer, tout.